3I Atlas is literally ripping plasma from the sun, and the Earth is on high alert. When this happens, it causes extreme geological and atmospheric volatility on the planet, as well as likely shifts and upgrades in consciousness. So, in a psychic forecast, by combining science with intuition and remote viewing, here's what to expect this coming fall. So, firstly, we're going to start out with some science, some astrology, then give you a psychic forecast combining science and intuition and remote viewing and so forth. So 3IA Atlas, what is it? It's the third interstellar object found by the Atlas network of telescopes that searches the cosmos for asteroids, comets, and things that could potentially be a threat to life here on planet Earth. Now, in 2017, Oumuamua, which was One-Eye Atlas, passed around September of that year, I believe, and this caused the most intense solar flares of solar cycle 24, which was the lowest solar maximum that we've had in like 100 years. And basically, the solar flares that happened in 2017, that was 3 years after the solar maximum, and they were double-digit flares. And within a day or two, an 8.2 magnitude earthquake fired up in Mexico, and rattled the area there. So though One-Eye Atlas passed a lot closer to the sun than 3I Atlas will. And that has an effect. But at the same time, its path was much more brief because it cut through the elliptical orbits of the planet, whereas 3IA Atlas is running more or less parallel within 5 degrees of the elliptical. So it's going to be in our backyard for much longer, and therefore it's going to have a stronger effect and a stronger resonance. So the sun... and also, One-Eye Atlas was close and interacted with the Sun-Mercury magnetic network, but it was short-lived again. Also, the plasma field was smaller on One-Eye Atlas, or non-existent at all, basically. And there was little, if any, tail basically detected on that. 3IA Atlas will be affecting us for much longer as it travels within 5 degrees of the planetary elliptical orbit. Also, 3IA Atlas is larger. It has a very complex and large plasma and dust field around it, which is electromagnetic and affects the electromagnetic network of the solar system, or will be more and more, which will have a greater impact on the sun's corona, which is mostly made of plasma, basically. So there can be a gravitational influence on the sun as well, despite its relatively small size, as it interacts with a planetary magnetic vector, basically. If the density of 3IA Atlas approaches that of a black hole, it's possible that it'll enhance the gravitational effect. And that's possible. We don't yet know the exact composition of it, but we know it's very, very dense matter. Based on the composition in the orbit, scientists are very, very confident, at least 95% sure, that this is an interstellar object rather than an object from our solar system, like most comets, basically. So, a couple of days ago, and this was really, really interesting, a couple of days ago, there was a huge flare on the opposite side of the sun. It wasn't Earth-directed, it was off the east limb, and some really incredible, intense plasma filament ejections happened off of the east limb of the sun. There are likely caused by electromagnetic volatility, or I should say plasma filaments in general are caused by electromagnetic volatility on the sun. But I watched this repeatedly over and over again, and it looked to me like plasma is really being ripped from the sun, pulled apart from the sun, rather than it being ejected from the sun. And I watched it over and over again. This was like large, and there were a couple of them in different sides of the sun. Large and intense, basically. Something that I hadn't seen yet. Granted, I've been looking at and studying space weather for a relatively short time now. And before I go on, I need to give a shout out to Stefan Burns, geophysicist, because I get a lot of my scientific data on geology and space weather from his channel, as well as two others. I'm a meteorologist by trade, so I have a good base understanding of geology and space weather, but I get a lot of the details there. So thank you, Stefan, for your incredible work on your channel. So look, you got moving right along here. So probably was a combination of both. That perhaps 3I Atlas. God, I'll never get that right. 3I Atlas, probably was partly responsible that combined with some geomagnetic volatility on the sun itself. We are still in the solar maximum, which is another interesting footnote that we had so much solar activity with the first one with 1I Atlas. And that was 3 years off of an underwhelming solar maximum. This is right off the peak. We're just starting to come off the peak right now, so very, very active still. But anyway, so probably was both. And the plasma released headed straight towards the general vicinity of where 3I Atlas is, kind of in between where Mars and 3I Atlas, which I found that to be very, very interesting. Then last night, which was just a day and a half after that, a 7.5 magnitude earthquake fired off at Drake's Passage between South America and Antarctica. Now, you may know, if you've been watching my live streams, that it was either last Thursday on the Psychic Forecast or Sunday on Tarot Time that I told you that I felt that within days we were going to get a 7.5 magnitude earthquake, and it verified. Basically. So anyhow, where are we? So all this is happening, yet the comet is still quite a very good distance from the sun and the earth, and this activity is only going to increase as it gets closer. Your direct links have been found between space weather, geology, and atmospheric disturbances. So that's already known, and it's getting more known as time goes on. So what this means: more strong earthquakes and volcanoes are coming up this autumn. Again, be aware, not scared. This isn't doom and gloom. In fact, there's actually a very positive resonance with what's happening, even if it's going to cause a lot of volatility and some challenges. So expect stronger storms as we approach. Stronger storms like hurricanes. We're approaching the September 10th peak of the hurricane season. I have a feeling this is going to be a bottom half, what's the right expression? A bottom half hurricane season, basically, meaning that more activity after the peak than before the peak. And with the advent of this interstellar object, this comet, that's only intensifying that belief for me. But anyway, so the season likely to be bottom heavy. All right, so we got to that. Now, around October the 1st, the comet, the interstellar space object, will make its closest approach to the planet Mars, and Mars, Mercury, and Sun will be in a direct alignment then. It's not an astrological alignment because we measure the astrological conjunctions from the Earth. This is a heliocentric alignment that's happening between Mars and Mercury. Mercury is a heavyweight when it comes to gravitational influences, and I believe that Mercury is really within that large magnetic orb of the sun anyway. So what happens on Mercury really affects the sun and vice versa. And of course, Mars will be in alignment, and this object with its huge dust cloud of plasma is going to be interacting with that alignment. And these alignments naturally cause increases in this solar as well as geological activity, basically. So be direct alignment. And then on the 21st of October, it makes a superior conjunction with the sun, or in other words, it's a conjunction on the far side of the sun, as related to Earth that's happening right when Mars and Mercury are also going to be in conjunction. I think it's around 21 degrees Scorpio that thereabouts, or I think I don't have it written down because actually the sun's going to be at the very later degrees of Libra, so that's where the conjunction is going to be also. So anyway, that said, what does this all mean? Let's cut to the chase. It will enhance solar instability and probably increase solar flaring and plasma ejection that can cause significant disruption, power grids, to the power grids, to the communication satellites. Large power outages are possible if one of these large flares or plasma filament ejections or if a flare produces a coronal mass ejection of a high magnitude. It's probably going to produce more double-digit X-class flares like Oumuamua did in 2017, basically. And it's also going to, as a result, increase earthquakes, volcanoes, as well as big changes in global consciousness and geopolitics and stuff like that. Because I do believe, as I discussed earlier, that this is a conscious entity, and I'm going to get more to that in a minute. So as I discovered this object or comet or cosmic life force is a transmitter as well as a receiver of information from the solar system, the human collective, the Earth collective, and stuff of that nature, basically. So it's going to cause a lot of increased volatility. That's going to peak first around October 1st, and then another peak towards the 21st of October. Right around that time, anyways. So what this means is more frequent and stronger fluctuations in the Schumann resonance. Also, fluctuations that can't be explained by weather and known factors that affect the Schumann resonance, solar as well as geological factors and such. But specifically, here's what to watch out for. I predicted at the beginning of the year that 2025 would feature at least 2, if not 3, major earthquakes in the USA, basically. So far, there have been 0. Well, maybe 1 if you include the 7.1 off the illusions of Alaska. But that really, even though it was a major earthquake, it was still a low impact event. So that could be why 2 or 3, maybe there's that one and 2 major ones that are still coming. This interstellar object is certainly going to enhance those chances. And again, nothing's written in stone. Just because all this is happening, everything's lining up, doesn't mean that anything's necessarily going to happen. But what I get intuitively and what the science is saying really makes me feel like there's at least an 80, if not close to 100% chance this is going to increase earthquake, volcanoes, weather, and all kinds of volatility geopolitically and whatnot on the planet. So anyway, all areas are prone, but intuitively, watch the San Andreas fault. We talked about that in my last psychic forecast. Watch the axial seamount, which are underground volcanoes off of Oregon and Washington. Possibly the Cascadia fault, but I had a vision where tsunamis propagated from that part of the ocean off the Pacific Northwest. It was a pretty strong vision, but it was far enough off that makes me feel like it might be really the axial seamount, an underground volcano, rather than a fault on the subduction zone, which would produce a mega thrust earthquake, which would be horrible. Also keep in mind that, especially since 2012, I found that a lot of the predictions from myself and others have verified, but to a lesser extent than it could have been. In other words, not the worst case scenario. And I believe part of that is because more of us are awakening and sending more positive energy and helping those beings, their beings or consciousness, whether it's extraterrestrials or God, spirit, or source. And we know that prayer is powerful and intention is powerful. So I think with a higher level of intention, more people sending energy that way, it's actually mitigating some of the more extreme outcomes that could happen, basically. So again, be aware, not scared. And also watch the new Madrid fall. We also talked about that, especially in October, through January. And history shows through, I think it was 1804, but through the last big eruption, a triple eruption or double eruption on the new Madrid, that there was a corresponding, I think a 7.1 on the San Andreas also. So it shows there's a correlation between those two. And all, if truth be told, all the geological faults. I mean, the Earth is a consciousness. It's a closed system. It's not fragmented. If there's an earthquake in one area, it propagates a seismic wave through the planet, and it affects the whole planet, basically. So anyhow, moving right along, increased volcanism. Watch that. Watch how around the super volcano Campi Flegrei. Am I pronouncing that right? Campi Flegrei. And geologists are concerned about that because the crust that keeps the magma at bay has gotten very thin, and it wouldn't take much for that to be broken, basically, and for there to be basically a very large volcano. I don't think if we do get a major eruption there, I don't think it's going to be the whole caldera, like a whole super volcano that's going to really disrupt the entire planet, cause the equivalent of a nuclear winter, worst case scenario. But it could be a very, very significant event. And of course, Etna is very much on the table. So what's that as well? In the entire Mediterranean area, also New Zealand, South America, Japan, Philippines, Russia, and Indonesia area are highly suspect. Really anywhere in the world, but and also the East Coast, right around the Carolinas is very subject, as well as, believe it or not, the Northeast. So these are areas to watch. So any fault that's close to slipping, or any or thrusting, or any volcano that's close to erupting, can activate with its increased electromagnetic energy and gravitational flux being catalyzed by this interstellar object, basically. Similarly, we'll see a general breakdown in society and governments leading to massive reforms, positive change, and the unsustainable of old Earth will begin to crumble in earnest, leading to a rebuild based up more on compassion and community rather than leveling control over the masses. So, in other words, mass teardowns in society are likely to be kind of a fallout of this comet, this interstellar object that's affecting us now, as well as more atmospheric, oceanic, and geological upheaval as the old Earth crumbles. So could this be a signal that we are shifting from 3D to 5D consciousness here on planet Earth? I believe so. And the more I ponder what I received in remote viewing, so I did remote viewing and I got information that I'm going to share at the end here, but the more that I ponder on what I received, the less that I feel like it's a tradition of whatever that means, UFO or alien or stuff like that. It could be, but the less I'm thinking that it's like some kind of a manned ship or anything like that. Or an alien invasion or any of that kind of stuff. And the more I feel like this is some kind of a conscious entity, a life form that we do not understand, basically. And it's either a life form that travels space to help societies, downloading information into the morphic fields, into our conscious fields and the earth fields or planetary fields as it passes through other solar systems. And also gathers information also, and it may be connected to a larger life form or a planet or a society. And it could be a space rock, but I believe it has these qualities of consciousness, and it's transmitting and receiving information from us, basically. So let me jump back into my notes. Solar system, space, geometry. But either way, no matter what, it feels alive to me. It feels alive, conscious, and energetic to me. And we may, truth be told, we may never know exactly what this interstellar object is. But whatever the case, in some way, shape, or form, I believe it to be an emissary for mass awakening here on planet Earth. And we have to understand that the old has to die for the new to be reborn. And it's always, when the old dies, there's always a lot of change, and it can be traumatic. The more we can be in our hearts, the more we can ascend in consciousness, to be grounded and to share and to connect into community, the easier the transition is going to be. So that's, basically the important thing to really understand. It's time to raise our consciousness. I do believe this interstellar object is assisting in that process of ascension that we're undergoing right now. And if we do our part, we're going to assist it as it assists us. And I think it's part of a larger network of consciousness and energy, and maybe beings that are working with us from other dimensions or other planets and star systems at this time. So I got a lot more information through remote viewing, and I have more detailed information on the science and what this is in the first part of this video, which is right over here for you. So thank you. I hope that this is helpful for you, and let me know what you think in the comments. If you like what we do here, please subscribe to the channel. And if you like and comment, you might help to get this information out to more people, to help more people. Thank you. I love you.